Wait. Hello and welcome to Pankration Philosophy. I'm here with my guest Greg Sage. Yeah. And then off camera is Greg's cat. Trying to be on camera.
Yeah.
But alright.
Hello.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Greg.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So I'll let my cameraman get situated here. But alright, so
And usually you do that before you start.
you know.
There's a lot of things I don't do.
That's true. There's a lot
Clearly.
of things that
Yes.
Ender doesn't do. But what we do here is that we have people tell about their martial arts stories. So Greg, I just wanted to ask you, how did you get started in martial arts?
I started a little later in life. I'd always been kind of fascinated by combat, even if it was theater, but combat, things like pro wrestling.
Okay.
I was a theater minor in college, and I loved theater combat, and I watched, they didn't call it MMA at the time because I wouldn't even consider the first kind of rounds of the UFC as MMA. I think it was just
no holds barred.
like a dog and pony show. But I was really just kind of always drawn to combat.
Okay.
But I didn't start till I was about 26.
Okay.
And oddly, I started. My first day was at AMC.
Okay.
So I started my career at AMC, and I continue. And it's just continued that way for the last almost 15 years.
Yeah. So how did you find out about AMC, or was it did you just happen to be near you?
So we used to have a school. We used to have a satellite school down in the Auburn Super Mall. They had a weightlifting gym there, and it was also run by a guy who was a collegiate wrestler, an amateur wrestler.
Okay.
And so Matt had an agreement with him, and one of the trainers there was a guy I played drums with in high school. And I was playing in two bands at the time, and I was touring, and it was literally in the middle of cutting an album.
Okay.
And I went through this period where a bunch of people kind of just oddly just started kind of passing away in my life. Some of them were older, some of them were by accident. I had a lady who was like a second mom to me who died kind of in a really weird accident, and I was driving home. I lived in Seattle, but I grew up in Auburn, so I knew it was there. I didn't know about the one in Kirkland. Okay. And I didn't know it was actually AMC. I just knew I'd went to the Brawl at the Mall.
Okay.
And
so you'd seen a show.
Yeah, and I kind of knew who Matt was, not really, but you know. And Lieben was training at the time at AMC, and he's kind of a misfit, and I consider myself a little bit of a misfit when I was younger. So. Okay. But so I was driving back up to Seattle. No, I'm sorry. Where was I going? No, I was going home to see my folks after band practice one night down in Auburn. Yeah. And I was talking to my singer on the way home, and I was really frustrated, and I was kind of down because life was, that kind of stuff was happening, and I was like, man, I just want to fight for some reason. I just want to fight, And I always had kind of a little bit of an uppity personality. And he was like, you should just do it. So I literally drove down to Auburn, walked in the door, saw this guy Eric there, and I signed up, and I started training the next day. Okay. And my idea of it was I was going to, because I was living in Seattle, working in Bellevue. Okay. Band practice was in Seattle, and in my head I was like, I'm just going to do this one day a week for some different exercise and fun, get out some different frustrations, I was still in love with, at that time, really still in love with playing music, and that was the art that I wanted. I was starting to fall out of love with it, though, that's for sure at that point. Okay. And so I met Frank. Okay. Oh. So I met Johnny Cage. I met Frank Coulter, who was old grappling and all-around coach for at AMC. Yeah. And I would stay late. I'd only go on Thursdays, and I would just stay late. So and he would stay late.
1 day a week. Okay.
Yeah, and he would stay late with me. And then one day a week turned into Tuesday, because they only trained 2 days a week, I believe, down there. I think it was Tuesdays and Thursdays, if I remember correctly.
And was it just grappling at that point?
No, it was they would just have hours of classes, and it was taught by Steve Skids one day and Frank on another day at that time. And then so 1 day a week turned into 2 days a week. Okay. And then Frank was like, you know, you live in Seattle, you work in Bellevue, the main school's in Kirkland, and if you pay a membership here, you can still go there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so then I started kind of, I'll never forget this. I'd watch like Karos fight, and I'd watch like, I think an Anthony fight, and all these guys fight, and I showed up on a Saturday to redo orientation, you know, and I was like, oh fuck, these are the guys. And I was nervous. And and so that was like a sparring day. And so I remember sitting in the parking lot and just like being really nervous to go in. And I went in and I did orientation. I saw all the guys sparring, you know. And next thing I knew, you know, so within a year of training, I had quit both my bands.
Okay.
And I had quit playing music completely.
So just happened to fall out.
Yeah, and that kind of odd time of people dying continued to happen actually while I was at AMC, and it was and martial arts turned to my oasis.
Okay.
So it turned to my escape from kind of, I don't want to say escape from reality, but it was a place where I could bury myself for a few hours every day, and not worry about things. And so I would be usually the first one in and the last one out every day at AMC, and I just fell in love with it. I never thought I was going to be good at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't like, you know, I didn't like the fighting side of it. Honestly, I didn't like competing. I would compete, but I wasn't a great fighter. I wasn't a great competitor. I did it because I got pushed into it. But then I'm glad I did, though. You know. So, but yeah, that's how I started. So
when you're talking about your competitions, you felt like you got how did your competitions go, or what competitions did you do?
First thing I did was
a grappling tournament.
Tons of grappling tournaments. And grappling was not my strong suit. I didn't, and even by the time I did my first grappling competition, I had not even kickboxed yet.
Okay, so but how many how much experience have you had of training?
Oh, not even a year.
Okay, so
not even a year. No.
Okay.
I mean, it was funny because I'd always kind of do bad at the beginning of the tournaments because I'd always, you know, I didn't have like the mental side of it much yet, you know what I mean? So I'd always get kind of anxious and nervous and kind of psych myself out and kind of do that whole thing that they talk about, like you beat yourself before you even get in there. And then I'd lose, right in the first round, and then I'd go to loser's bracket, and then I would just kind of kill people, like, you know what I mean? Because I didn't care anymore.
Almost like that.
Yeah.
Your anxiety or apprehension.
Yeah, because there was no more pressure because I'd already lost. So you know, and I remember the first time I medaled was I did a Pankration tournament in the morning, and in the evening I did a grappling tournament, and I went a few rounds into the Pankration tournament. I didn't medal, but then like I got to the grappling tournament and no one was hitting me and I wasn't nervous anymore, and that's the first time I medaled, so I got second place in that. So so I mean I started doing competitions, and I started doing I did a couple kickboxing tournaments.
Okay.
Because I started kickboxing, and I fell in love with kickboxing. I fell in love with Dutch kickboxing very much. And then I had my first fight in like 2008. Okay.
And then, so you go there, you fight, and how was that experience, like, being a kickboxing fighter?
Well, I did, it was in December, and I did a kickboxing tournament in October, and I shut down during that kickboxing tournament, and just failed miserably, right?
Okay.
Which was maybe the greatest thing that could have happened, because I remember in my head, I was like, well, I'm not gonna do that, right? So I was like, that's, win, lose, or draw, I go into this kickboxing match.
Yeah.
As long as I don't do what I did in the tournament, where it's like I literally didn't do anything.
Almost hit like worst case scenario.
Yeah, it was like I already had it. So what else could go wrong? You know what I mean? And so, you know, for first time amateur kickboxing match, you know, and I ended up winning by a split decision against a really tough guy, and just. After that, man, I didn't really compete for a while. So
well, and it was just a conscious choice. Like, you just didn't feel.
Yeah, I didn't. You know, I was 29 on my first kickboxing match.
Yeah.
So not that that's old, but you know, I mean, it's not. You know, most people start competing, sometimes even in their teens. But for me, I didn't care for that side of it very much. And I fully admit, like I didn't. The mental side of it was way more hard for me than the physical side of it, and I think that's good for most people. But until I was mid-30s, I couldn't break through that mental barrier.
Okay.
And by that time, I was like, I just don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't. I didn't like the competition side of it, and I continued to do grappling tournaments a little bit after that too. Mm-hmm. So I just enjoyed being at the gym and learning and growing as a martial artist.
Yeah, and that was the part that you.
Yeah. It was never about fighting for me. It was never about competing against another person. It was always just about growing.
Growing.
Yeah.
Growing
yeah.
the learning process.
Yeah, I mean, AMC was the forge, I think, that molded me into a man.
Okay.
Just to be honest, I mean, it was. I mean, it taught me a lot of discipline I didn't have. It taught me a lot of confidence I didn't have, and it gave me a family that I don't really feel like I ever had until that point. So.
Okay.
That's what it was for me. It was growth, and it was martial arts. You know,
Yeah.
It wasn't fighting. It was martial arts.
It was martial arts, and that was what mattered to you. So how did you then go about from learning to then teaching and coaching?
A lot of hard work, a lot of not being entitled, not a lot of asking for things, but just going in and training and doing what was asked of me.
Okay.
And then a bit of circumstance, some changes in kind of, like we ended up opening the Pacific gym, and they needed instructors down there, and and instructors up in Kirkland a lot of them didn't want to go down there. And I had caught on to kickboxing pretty quickly. It was one of the first times in my life physically was something that my head and my body like matched. You know what I mean? Like, and it made sense. Yeah. Because it's funny because when I first started doing this, I was like, oh, that kickboxing stuff's for the birds, right? I'm gonna box and grapple, right? I don't know. I just started throwing kicks, and then I started working with kickboxing coaches there, and it clicked for me, and I fell in love with it. So, and I'd only been training for about 3.5 years when they asked me to coach, start teaching. I shouldn't say coaching, because I do think teaching and coaching are a little bit different.
Okay, like what? So what would you differentiate between
teaching is to me, teaching is teaching a class, teaching technique. Yeah. Coaching is preparing. To me, it's clearly just nomenclature, but coaching to me is like helping, like coaching someone getting ready for a fight, like cornering, learning how to wrap hands. Coaching and teaching they overlap each other, but teaching is different than coaching to me. Okay. Teaching is, and I don't know which one's actually harder. Okay. Because teaching to me is like teaching. It's much more broad. You have to, when you go teach a class, there's all levels usually in there.
Yeah, I mean? Varying degrees of experience.
Yeah. When you're coaching, you're more centered on one person, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And it's more centered for what they need. Okay. And I don't know if that's a true definition, but that's how I kind of think.
That's just how you see it. So, what would you? So that was your first teaching experience. So what would you say was your first coaching experience?
So we had a woman fighter named Nika. Which have you had Nika on the show yet?
No, but Morgan has brought her up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Nika, her and I just kind of clicked as human beings. We're still friends to this day, and. She was getting ready. Was it a Muay Thai fight or? It was either a kickboxing match or a Muay Thai fight. I can't remember. Okay. And it was just. I wasn't intending to be a coach. It just kind of started happening that way.
Okay.
And we just kind of started working together, and because we worked really well together, and. I wouldn't say it was even an intentional like coaching her for a fight, because she had clearly other coaches as well. I mean, she had Trevor, she had Daniel, she had Matt. You know what I mean? But we did a lot together. You know what I mean? And it was the first time I was in a corner for someone as well. Okay. And I think that was just the natural progression for me. Okay. And I don't even, that might have happened before I even started teaching classes. It was just. She trusted me, and she saw something in me that she wanted to learn, and I was happy to give her my knowledge because I was really enjoying it, and we were just two buddies kind of working together, and I helped her out for her first fight, and that's kind of how it started.
That's how it started, and that's how it kind of clicked from there. Okay, and then, so so as gone through the years of teaching and coaching, like what were what were some of the things that changed, like from, let's say, when you began teaching coaching, so let's say like how you teach and coach now?
Well, I've gotten better as a martial artist. I've learned more and I've gained more.
Yes.
Man, that's a lot. That's a lot. I mean, because I look back, it was. I've been teaching and coaching at AMC for over 8 years now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well over 8 years now. I learned a lot about myself for sure.
Okay.
I learned patience is one of them, because I wasn't, when I was younger, I wasn't the most patient person.
Okay.
I learned I learned a lot of examples of what not to do. I think from some of my peers. That doesn't mean that they were bad. I learned what I didn't like and what I don't think was effective.
Just what didn't work for you.
Yeah. I think you just go through this progression of like you feel like you have to teach this perfect thing and you don't. I've learned that like it changed. It changed from being I have to teach this curriculum to I have to just show people what I know how to do.
Okay.
And what I've learned.
What you've learned.
Yeah, and I think my mind started to open a lot with coaching, and I think it's also because I was very young when as far as being a martial artist when I started coaching, and I think even if I wasn't coaching or teaching, like this progression would have happened under the people that I was surrounded by, because look who I'm surrounded by. You know what I mean?
It would have happened.
Yeah, and I think it was just understanding myself and other people, and then realizing right or wrong is a very relative thing. I mean, there's some really basic kind of fundamental things that you should probably do, but once you kind of get past that, right or wrong is even relative. Is very relative. I mean, and even within those basics, I don't know. It's such an endless ocean to ask that question. I don't know where to start, and I don't know where to end with that.
Okay.
Because it hasn't ended, and B, where that would start would be, I looked back and I was like, I was so wide-eyed and so excited to be accepted into that level. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying it felt like a man amongst gods.
Yeah.
And I still feel that way today. And so it's taught me it taught me to trust in myself, because if people at that level are trusting in me, that means I need to trust in myself. And it gives you a good kind of unwavering confidence of what you're teaching, which sounds kind of, I guess, narcissistic, but that you have to have that confidence.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I know everything, you know what I mean? So, clearly. So, but it starts to, I guess where I grew to was confidence in myself.
Yeah.
That what I was doing was right, and if it wasn't, I would be shown that, and I have, and God, just sitting next to Matt Hume in the middle of a fight while he's cornering people, your mouth shut, just listening to that man, I mean, like, how can you not grow from that? Like, how can you not get better as a coach from that? So I'm very lucky to have that. I'm very lucky to get that a lot. It was also something that was kind of asked of me. And I give because I love it. So it's given me a lot of things back. So yeah, I don't know if that was a long rambling tirade. That didn't answer your question, but you know what I mean.
It's okay, but it's like it's not an easy question to answer.
It really isn't.
It's a lot, and it's because it's like you're saying, it's a lot. But I feel like
I mean, and I think you know this from coaching as well. Like you started, and I think you have one view of what it is.
Yeah.
And within a year of doing that's gone.
Yes.
And a year after that's gone, and it breaks all the expectations or kind of ideas of what you thought it was to do that, and they kind of break pretty quickly, because it's like walking into something. No matter how much you've been a martial artist, when you change to being a coach or instructor, it's different.
Yes.
It's why you can have really great fighters that are awful coaches.
Yeah.
And you can have people like me that are really bad fighters, really bad competitors who I think I'm a good coach. You know what I mean?
You're a good coach.
Yeah. So
I think I think what it is, it's almost. I mean, as an instructor myself, I feel it's really a big thing is the power of perspective and understanding like that. I like what you said, how you show what you know, and it's a matter of people of how they, interpret it, and because they have to, like a student has to take, like what an instructor does. It's not copying it, but they have to make it their own.
Right,
That's the way I see it.
And that's why it's martial arts, right?
Yeah.
So it's an expression of yourself. And our art is a violent expression of ourselves, and it's a back-breaking, bone-grinding, blood, sweat, and tears art, and it's the truth, though. It's like when you put yourself through that kind of mental torture and physical torture, and we seem to do it almost on a daily basis, you'll find out who you are.
Yeah, it's true. It's like you get an honest expression of what it is, because you can't hide from there. Yeah.
And I think the way you fight, the way you spar, the way you compete, or the way you train, that shows who you are.
Yes.
And when you change, that changes.
Yeah.
Or it changes you. I don't know, because I feel like it's changed me. You know what I mean? Like, so the way I used to train, or the way I used to spar, or the way I used to do that, I don't know if I changed it because I got older and more mature, or if it's the thing that changed. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't know what exactly started, but it has changed. No, I agree with you. I feel like, because what we do, like in the martial art or a martial artist, their expression is just a reflection of who they are. And when they do change, or you can tell. Yeah, it's hard to tell, what changes. Is it the person, or is it what they do? But in essence, it's still different.
Right.
Like as it progresses, and I feel, and that's an interesting thing. That's the thing I feel people who aren't, I guess, as in tune to martial arts, don't quite understand.
Right.
Because when they see it, they can't quite discern what is, I guess, it's almost the way I look at it, like someone's expression, or someone's martial arts expression. It's like their fingerprint, it's unique to them.
Right.
Even though, everyone has fingerprints, or I also tune into handwriting. Everyone has a way they write. Everyone punches, everyone kicks, or everyone, writes the same letters, but it's the way they put it together.
Right.
That's different from there.
And there's, you can learn under the same system. Like, we've all learned under the same system, but we are clearly different in how we express that art. And that has to do with body type, athleticism, interest, you know what I mean? That's why, as a coach or a teacher or whatever, I used to hate this idea that you have, people that you prefer to work with, right?
Yeah.
As in, not hate that idea, but, that you...
Just kind of had a conflict?
I always had a conflict, because I felt like if I was going to teach, that I should be open to everyone, and no one should be special, basically.
Yes.
And that was the expectation I had, and that was the thought I had, because I had seen other coaches do that, and maybe I was a little resentful or something, And then I got into it, and then you realize that coaching, you can do that teaching. So I can do that teaching.
Yeah.
When I teach a class of a large group of people, I try to help everyone in there as much as I can.
Yes.
And that's a dynamic between you and them, but it's in a large it's in a large group kind of setting.
Yes.
But then here's another coaching. It's coaching people. I enjoy. It's like a relationship. It's like a dance partner, right? Yeah. And there's certain people that you're going to click with more.
Yeah.
And that they're going to click with you more, and that you're going to benefit out of that relationship more than, say, somebody that it's forced with, right?
Yeah.
And so, Andrew, what are you doing to my cat? I don't know, man, but it's really distracting. I'm trying to have a good conversation with you, and you're over here break dancing on the floor over there with my cat.
That's an odd dance relationship you have with the cat.
Yeah. But even with people that I feel like I have that special relationship with, a few of them you've had on the show, you know what I mean? And But I've always, I don't think that anyone, and I don't think any one person has every answer.
Yes.
And I've really kind of distanced myself from people that coached or taught that were in there that had that idea. And I've always told all those people that work with me who we enjoy that relationship of like teacher, coaching, student relationship or whatever, to go learn from others and really push them to be like, I know that you like what I do.
Yeah.
But that is a small section of what you need to learn, right?
Yeah.
You need to go work with all these other people, and you're in a really great place that you can go do that. You know what I mean? And you know, between your peers of other students or other fighters or you know your teammates or other coaches that are there or even maybe other places. You know what I mean? You know, you can pull from that tree of knowledge and make yourself a better fighter, a better martial artist, hopefully better than you know, like anybody I coach or teach. I'm hoping at some point they are better and have more knowledge than I do. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's gonna happen. But you know, and I watch the people that I work with grow and then come back. And the other thing is, it's a learning experience for me because they come back and they, hey, I learned this from so and so, and then so I get to learn something.
Yeah, so your knowledge expands.
Yeah, it's symbiotic. It's definitely not, you know, it's a very. I always try to make it a very symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, it's not like a one-way street.
I don't like a power dynamic of that of being like, well, you know, I'm God and you're the student, and I don't know. I don't like that very much. It just doesn't work for me. Some people it does, you know what I mean, and it's great, but it's never worked for me that way.
Okay, I guess like so. What have been, so through that symbiotic, like what have been, so you mentioned Nika, but what have been some other people that you've coached where you've gotten a lot of takeaway as well?
Shatrine for sure. Shatrine that you had on.
Yeah, we had on. And then how so for that?
I don't know. It was just right place, right time, right person kind of a thing, and I seem to find that I enjoy training women as well. I don't know why that is. I just do. I enjoy training men as well. So it's but I think because it's a hard thing to say, but I think for women in fighting, it's a hard thing.
Yes.
And to feel safe.
Yeah.
Because of the violence in the art, and because it's a very like. I mean, the ratio of men to women within fighting is very.
It's very skewed.
Skewed, yes.
Yes.
And so, men have a tendency to be awful to women. And I think for me, it's like I don't know. I guess they feel safe with me. You know what I mean? And because my agenda and my goal is not. There's no funny business within it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I enjoy training people and martial artists, and I for some reason I just really clicked with a lot of women. Shatrine and I have had I have a really good relationship. Also outside of training with Shatrina, she's my friend, and I love her husband, and we've traveled together with my wife, and you know, all of us have kind of done stuff and got like, you know, and she tricked Pat into believing that they were going to Hawaii just to hang out with us, and then we trained with her the whole time. But you know. She's a person that I've learned a lot about how to be a better coach from, because we communicate, we talk to each other, and we are very honest with one another. We're you know, we're not hurtful to each other in that honesty, but we're just very honest with each other. And she's brilliant. She's possibly the most intelligent human being I've ever kind of experienced in my life. I mean, she's very experienced as far as like seeing the world, and she has a degree from Yale. She speaks like 4 or 5 languages. She's now becoming a doctor, you know, and like, and I look at Shatrina and I'm like, what did I do with my life? Like, you know, and I feel very blessed and very lucky that I could have such a special human being, connect with her, make her feel safe, and learn from her, and give all the knowledge I could ever possibly want to give. I give to her. You know what I mean? So, and for somebody to accept it, and it's a really cool thing. You know, I don't know if it's odd for people to see that, but you know.
No, it's just like you said, like that coaching, like relationship. But I feel it's that symbiotic, because you know, whoever you affect, they affect you the same way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing.
I'm kind of working on that with like someone else you had on right now is Morgan Engelhart and I are working on a lot of stuff, and watching her grow is amazing, man. Watching her, like, watching things click.
Yeah.
Because she's a very gifted athlete.
Yeah, she is.
Holy cow, is she a gifted athlete. You know what I mean? And, you know, James Yang is another guy. You know what I mean? Like, I love working with James. I mean, James, you know, that we're peers and learning from each other. Because that guy is something special.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he is something, he's going to, you know, I can't say enough nice things about that guy. I think he has every aspect of what you need to be successful at this.
Yes.
So, and I'm just really lucky to have people who want to learn from me that are like that. You know, and I've worked very hard for that too. But I'm also very lucky to have that. So, yeah, I love coaching. So.
Okay, and well, let's talk about. I know you cornered Karos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For ONE FC. So for those who don't know, Karos did fight for ONE FC, an international organization.
Yeah.
I know you went on some trips with him.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. How was that?
It was amazing. I mean, so Karos and I have been training together for 13 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I consider myself. I mean, Matt is clearly everyone's coach at AMC.
Yes.
I mean, like that. But and Matt is clearly Karos's coach. I feel like I just helped along the process.
Yeah.
Because we've just been training together for so long, and I mean, the wealth of knowledge I learned from doing that was unreal. But it's also, he's like, you know, he was a groomsman at my wedding. He's like, I love the guy like a brother. It's every time we've gone on like whenever he's fought and we've been on these trips together, whether it be in the U.S. or be in Asia, I feel like there's stories I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And no, you know, and he didn't win all those fights, you know what I mean? And he didn't perform to his best ability for all those fights. He knows that. And that part's really hard, you know what I mean? But I think in the long run of things, like, it doesn't matter. Because the bond that we had and the stories we have and the things that we've learned about each other along the way are things that I sometimes don't even remember a lot of the fights. I just remember the experience, yeah. And like, you know, traveling around the world with my brother, you know what I mean? And like, because him and I are kind of goofballs together. You know, a lot of people don't know Karos because he doesn't. It's not that he's not friendly. He's just not really open to a lot of people. But I'm very lucky that him and I are close like that. And we're the old timers now. You know what I mean? So it's like when I hear these stories about like Ivan and Josh and like you know and. You know, I go to other places and like hear the stories of the old timers, and it's like I think Karos like he's like, dude, I think we are that.
I think we become the old.
We are those guys now because we have a lot of really fun, sometimes scary stories, you know, and sometimes ridiculous stories, you know, and it's stuff like, you know, it's things that we say like we'll tell our grandkids, you know what I mean? Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna have grandkids, but I'm not having kids.
Yeah.
But things I'll tell other
kids
people.
Kids of grandkids.
Kids, you know, and so it's. And it was such an amazing experience for me to be on a big card in like Asia and experience a much different culture about fighting than the U.S. I mean, so much different culture than fighting than the U.S. Because of how deep the tradition of martial arts just in general. I mean, I believe everybody kind of agrees that next to Greece, it's probably the birthplace of martial arts. You know, so. You know, the rich history and the love and the knowledge that these people have and the hunger that they have because, man, like a lot of these, like we, you know, the U.S. has a lot of fighters that come from bad backgrounds and poverty and they fight and they fight their way out of it, and you can argue it's very exploitative and it could be, you know what I mean? And I would say, you know, it probably is, and then you go to Cambodia. And you see people that live in real poverty, and you see people that that's the only thing they have. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they will. It's life or death, like true life or death for them. And this is you know, the opportunities that they received to have a better life for them, and not only them but their families. It's it was very humbling, and it was made me very appreciative of what I have,
Mm-hmm.
and but it was also so very inspiring. I tell this story, and we kind of giggled about it at the time, but then it really kind of put perspective. I went to ONE FC for a fight in Cambodia, and it was the first time that there was an event in Cambodia. Yeah. And they had a 4-man tournament for 4 Cambodian fighters. Yeah. And whoever won, I believe, and I don't remember correctly, but I believe he got a contract with ONE FC. Okay. And so, they have rules and regulations. You have to wear protective. You have to wear a cup. Yeah. Well, these guys had no idea what that was. They had never trained with one. They didn't know what it was, and so they literally had to borrow other people's groin protectors. Like another competitor. Yeah, and they literally had to share, and they had 2 for each side, and then whoever and it was, they were Muay Thai cups, which are, and it was like it put a lot of perspective about the difference, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like how raw that was. Like these guys didn't even realize like what like that was a thing, and I don't know. It was. I know it sounds very simple, and we were kind of giggling about it, but that was very ethnocentric of us to think like, oh, how funny it is that they don't know what that is. Yeah. But it's because they never had the experience of that.
Yeah, they just never been exposed to it.
Yeah, and so it was, and then I start thinking about their training, and I'm like, oh, those poor guys, you know what I mean? Because I don't know how many times you've been kicked in the groin, but I've been kicked in the groin a lot in my life. So it's like, so, and it's never fun, even with a cup on. So it's, and I had a lot of kind of, retrospective thought about it, and I was like, man, kudos to those guys, because, and the way those guys fought was, like it was, the way they fought was, they had, they were not going to lose. No matter, I mean, that was like, it was like the heart, more heart than I think I've ever seen. It was pretty amazing to watch, actually. So, and the technical side of it didn't matter, because you just saw somebody who was fighting for their existence. And so, you can argue that's pretty kind of exploitative, but I think it's not, because they didn't, where else would they be? Yeah. So, yeah. But I mean, that experience is really amazing, you know what I mean? And being around other cultures and places I never thought I'd go to, it's great. I hope it doesn't end, you know what I mean? I'm not dead yet, so, I'm hoping, like, I don't know if Karras will fight again. I don't. He's at kind of a. He's at kind of a impasse of this, or a fork in the road with his career, and and he knows that, like, when he needs me, he just has to ask. I'll be there, and so, but I look to guys like you and James, and some of the other people at AMC that hoping that that you guys, if you want to continue on with this, that we can all do it together as a family, and I get to use you guys to go see more of the world. More of the world.
No, but it is interesting though, like just like what you said, like how other cultures view martial arts. Yeah. Because as a Filipino, coming from the Philippines, right? I know it's just, I don't know how else to say, but it's like there's just a different. Because I feel like, okay, I'm a martial artist here, but people don't, like, the average person doesn't get that. Right. Whereas so I was just in the Philippines in March, and then when I say like that's like my family members, or like even not even family, like people I just met, they understand, or they right. know what. I guess it's just, I don't know, like I want to say it's like fighting, it's a fighting culture.
Right,
they get
like, okay. Very much so.
Yeah, it's like they get it, like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whereas like for here, the average like, whoa, you do that?
Yeah, you get the, stay away, I gotta watch out for you, and you're like, well, no, I'm also a civil human being, like I don't just, if I don't just go punch things when I have a problem with it, you know what I mean? Yeah. Where I think that, when you go to a different culture that, like, that's just kind of really steeped in their culture, you know what I mean? Which it is in America as well, but it's just a different kind of outlook. You know what I mean? It's a different style. It's like, I think in a lot of like Asian cultures, especially, it's like it's development for survival. Yes. Where it's development in the U.S., I think, because we're in comparison such a young culture, is more about sport. right? So whereas you get into some of, especially like the Philippines, you get into like some of the martial arts there. It's about survival. It's not about a competition. It's about hurting someone quickly. You know what I mean? And so I think that they get it more. You know what I mean? And there's not this weird kind of idea that we're all dumb meatheads that are just punching each other in the face. You know what I mean? I also blame the UFC on that a little bit because I love the sport of MMA. Yeah. Very much so. The fans, not my favorite at times. Yeah. Especially in America.
No, that's a good point, but I think it's like the way it's advertised here.
I think the UFC is a pretty stinky product, but that's just me. It's clearly successful, so you know what I mean. I mean, I do think it's gotten a little bit better now that they've had been on Fox, where they're kind of trying to make it more of a legitimate sport instead of a dog and pony blood show. You know what I mean? But it's still, and that also might be where we're at. I mean, the place that we developed ourselves and the place that we chose to craft our martial art is clearly steeped in much more Asian culture and traditional martial arts than say maybe some other gyms around the U.S. and a lot of the kind of, for lack of a better term, meatheady, not that we don't have them, but they don't tend to enjoy it there as much. You know? Especially because outside of fighting, we have a lot of talks about comic books and video games and there's a lot of nerds at AMC. So it's, I think, and I'm really happy for that because it's the culture there is pretty fantastic.
Yes, I would agree.
And there's other gyms that are like that too. You know what I mean? There's other gyms in this area that are like that. So, I just I think, but it's hard for the general public to understand why we do what we do. Yes. And I think a big part of my growth in this is acceptance of that. Because it's not, for American culture, it's not a normality for us. It's not like, we don't have this weird we need to survive kind of thing for the most part, especially some people do clearly because but I didn't grow up that way. I didn't need martial arts because I was in a bad place where I needed to survive physically. You know what I mean? So I think it's hard for people to grasp the concept of why we even want to do it. Yes. And I think they never will.
Yeah. Well, it's just. Yeah, no, but I feel that acceptance is a part of it because it's something that people just can't wrap their head around because it's almost they can't understand the choice to do so. But but that's just one thing that that you decide to embrace if you want to be part of that.
Well, I mean, I kind of have a theory about it. Is that I think that it's born within you. I think that there's certain people that are just drawn to that. Yeah. And I mean, I don't have, empirical evidence. The best evidence I have is the example of the people that I know. And the people that I know who enjoy doing this literally span kind of all facets of society. From doctors to lawyers to construction workers to drug addicts to, you know what I mean? And I think, I wasn't a tough guy growing up. I got picked on. I was a nerd that got picked on. And I was still just drawn to it. Even, and it wasn't about revenge or, there is a part of it that I wanted to feel more confident in myself and feel more safe with myself because of, being picked on, which is, but I was always drawn to it. Even as a kid, I feel like I was drawn to it. So I think it's just something that's, the warrior spirit, I guess, for a lack of a better term, is something that's born in people. And it's born in people that you wouldn't think it would be. It's a very surprising thing. I think Ender is a good example of that, right? Ender is not somebody that if you met that you would think is this kid who's
oh, what do you do for fun?
Training in cage fighting for, you know what I mean? Since he was what 14? 13, yeah. Wow. And if you met him, you would be look at he looks like just a tall, gangly nerd.
You know what I mean? Which he is.
Which I was too, you know what I mean? So, I mean...
No, you bring up a very interesting point. I mean, I think, in essence, that's
but I wish a motherfucker would. You know no, but anyways.
No, but it's true, like you said, and that's what I feel too, just in... like just doing this show and interviewing people such as yourself and my other guests, it brings that up. It brings up like, okay, why? Because we, also different, from like, you, Shatrine, Morgan, James, like, Irving, people from different walks of life, from vastly different walks of life, but all coming to,
dude, look at Caro's.
Yeah.
Do you think that if AMC didn't exist, that him and I would even?
No.
Probably, and I don't want to put like that kind of like, like look at him and look at me, like in how but clearly very different lives, very different people, like, actually not that different of people, but on the surface looks. What culture would I have been in? Yeah, where would I have intersected with?
Where else would you have?
I wouldn't have. You know what I mean? And so like I said, I don't have any true data of like it's born in people, but I mean, you're talking about Shatrine, who scored 98% in the MCAT.
Yeah, 98%.
Got accepted in one of the hardest medical schools in the U.S.
Yeah.
Within a week of applying. You know what I mean? So it's not like I hang out with a lot of those people either. You know what I mean? So
that's another unique intersection. Right. From there.
So so I think it's just kind of I think it's bred within people. I'm not bred, but born within people to just drive that way. I mean, Scott's another guy. Like, I've known Scott for 11, 12 years.
Yeah.
And if AMC didn't exist, I wouldn't know Scott. We're just two different people, you know what I mean, that enjoy very different things. And, I'm really lucky that I've known Scott for that long. Drives me nuts. You drive me fucking nuts, Scott. Like, no joke. You drive me batty, but I love you dearly.
Yeah.
But like, I don't, you know what I mean? And him and I have had great, great times together, and I've learned a lot from Scott, and I hope Scott's learned a lot from me. So, and so I mean, I think the greatest thing for me being a coach is literally watching people grow.
Well,
I've known you since you were what?
You know me since I was 16.
Yeah, so
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and to watch you grow not just as a martial artist, but as a man and like as a human being, I feel very privileged and lucky to have that with a lot of really great people.
Yeah.
So
no, and that's that's another thing. That's another thing that I feel when I got into it, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about the relationships.
Well, we all know how you got into it.
Yeah, I know we all know how.
To fight a dude.
Yeah, to fight somebody. Yeah, no, for sure. It's just funny.
That's my favorite story. I wanted to go beat up a dude. So
my great plan.
Yeah. So like, but that's why Carol's got into it. Carol's got into it because he was getting drunk and getting in street fights. You know what I mean? And so he's like, I want to learn how to beat somebody up quicker. And imagine, you think about like if fighting wasn't there, like, Carol's might not be.
Might not be.
And like there's a like I said, it spans all like society, right? So there's a lot of people that I think that if it wasn't here, we'd all have a lot different perspective on who they are, because I don't think that they would be doing good things. You know what I mean? So
it's a unique intersection. It's a unique outlet.
Yeah,
for sure.
It very much is. So.
But and that's but like you said, it's definitely exposed. It exposes you to people that you wouldn't necessarily think that you would. I never thought I'd be hanging out with a 15-year-old kid. Yeah, so.
Yeah. I'm still wondering. Because I don't mean to break from like the Pankration philosophy thing and fighting, but does he always just not pay attention and play on his phone?
Yeah, he always does that. Like in the last episode, he was like trying to throw cards like Gambit when
no, you're just so disinterested in what people have to say that you just like.
I watch it later.
He's just the classic. It's just that new generation.
So
that's how I know I'm getting old. I'm getting annoyed by teenagers.
I don't need to watch you guys because I'm making the video.
But you have no interest. I mean, you're filming the video, but you have no interest in what the people are.
I have a ton of interest, but there's
clearly. All right. Well, that I can't argue with that because that's a fair statement, because I get distracted by cats as well. So, and she's amazing. My cat's amazing. As she's licking her rear end right now.
Not the moment.
Yes. That's next to my wife. That's the love of my life right there.
Aww.
So.
But unique intersection, unique outlet. Well, speaking of that, I know you also are into pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And I know that's
surprise.
I know, surprise, right? No, but that's the thing. I think a lot of people aren't really aware of the connection between pro wrestling and martial arts.
So to me, pro wrestling is a martial art.
Yes.
And there's a good example I can give of this. So you talked to James about wushu, right?
Yes.
And wushu is based in a reality of fighting, right?
Yeah.
But it turned into a performance art.
Performance.
Right. So pro wrestling is steeped in legit grappling.
Yes.
It's steeped in legit grappling, and it has grown into a performance art that is much different.
Yeah.
So I approach pro wrestling very much like I approach martial arts, because to me it is another form of martial arts.
Yes.
And all you MMA fans that shit on pro wrestling, let me give you a little history lesson. Without pro wrestling, you wouldn't have your beloved sport of MMA. Because MMA comes from very much two places. And I'm going to say clearly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? And Vale Tudo.
Yes.
But the other part is Japan.
Yes.
And a lot of that comes from Pankration. And Pankration was all what we call in pro wrestling works, right? When you really fight, it's called a shoot in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
When you have a work, meaning a work is not real. If you go look at Matt Hume versus Ken Shamrock, right, in Pankration, that was a work.
Yes.
Now they're really punching and kicking each other, but it was a clearly decided who was going to win, predetermined who was going to win, and I don't think that anybody could beat Matt Hume with a Northern Lights suplex roll over into a Kimura.
Yeah.
Right. So when MMA guys shit on pro wrestling, it really bothers me, and that's because it's these American fans, because the Japanese don't do that.
Yeah.
They don't
It's the lack of
understand.
understanding.
They don't understand that without pro wrestling, you wouldn't have MMA.
Yeah.
Down to the business model of the UFC, because MMA was dead in America, right, until it was bought by Zuffa, right?
Yeah.
And what Zuffa did was they looked at the model of the WWE and said, they're really successful.
Yes.
They literally copied it like head to toe on how to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so the intersection between pro wrestling and MMA is great. And it's clear because you have pro wrestlers coming into MMA, right? Some of them are successful, some of them are not.
Yeah.
And you have MMA guys going into pro wrestling, and generally they're clearly a lot more successful in it.
Yeah.
But even on the there's a really healthy time right now of pro wrestling on the independent circuit. So when I say indie pro wrestling, I mean guys that are not signed with big companies like the WWE, TNA, New Japan, right? And in that there's it's the top tier is a very kind of small community, but below that it's a really big community. So that top tier community goes around and kind of works with the smaller community, right? And so you have guys like Matt Riddle, who was undefeated in the UFC.
Yeah.
He just didn't like their drug testing policies, and so he got into indie pro wrestling. And now he's making more money than he was in the UFC.
Yeah.
You've got Tom Lawler.
Oh yeah.
Philly Tom Lawler, who's making a ton of money.
Yeah.
You got guys, a guy named Jeff Cobb, who wrestled in the 2004 Olympics, right?
Wow.
And he's getting, he's starting to work over in Japan, and so you got, and then back in Japan you have guys like Suzuki, right? You have Sakuraba, you know what I mean, who are still pro wrestling to this day, and Ken Shamrock, you know what I mean, Bobby Lashley, it's like, so when Chael Sonnen comes up and he cut the way he got his title fights by cutting these promos, they are direct lines from superstar Billy Graham from the Northwest Territory, right, from back in the 70s. And so you have like Ronda Rousey, who's now wrestling for the WWE, but she was always in love with pro wrestling. I mean, her second father, after when her father who passed away, her second father was Judo Gene LaBelle, who's one of the most legit badasses ever in the history of mankind, right? And he was a pro wrestler, but he was also a legit judo player. And one of his best friends was Rowdy Piper. That's how Rowdy Piper gave Ronda the name.
Oh wow.
Rowdy Ronda Rousey. He bestowed it onto her from him. So, when you look at pro wrestling and MMA, they are married. They may be stepbrothers, you know what I mean, that don't get along, or you know what I mean.
But the relations,
there's no denying that they're married together, and that's why Japan, you would hear about in Japan, they really before really people knew that pro wrestling was a work, you know what I mean. You'd always hear talk about 80s, 90s. You always hear about in Japan they really do it for real, because they were pro wrestling and they were predetermined. But those guys were railing each other, and from that came what's known as the strong style, right? Where and the kind of pancrase grew out of like a lot of the strong style. And to this day, if you go watch New Japan Pro Wrestling compared to the WWE, the style of New Japan compared to the WWE is like New Japan. Those guys are kicking the fucking shit out of each other, right? Like, and a lot of MMA guys, I don't think they understand how hard pro wrestling is. It is way more dangerous than fighting, and it hurts way more than fighting. It hurt. I mean, I wrestled last night, and I had an unprotected, what we call a super kick, which is a side kick, right to my jawline, as hard as a guy could. You know what I mean? Unprotected, like just hit me right in the jawline. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because he missed his kick and he threw it really hard, and it, I can't close my jaw today. You know what I mean? And I knew it was coming, and I have to still take it. Yeah. So it's a whole different ball game, and like. I've always loved it as a kid. Like I said, I was always kind of trying to combat, but I've only been doing it for about 2.5 years, and I've really fallen in love with it, man. Like it's really kind of revitalized me with martial arts, and it's made me really appreciate kind of martial arts more and want to be doing more for martial arts, and because I have what they call a shoot background, you know what I mean? It's caused me to kind of want to, because grappling is clearly not my strong suit, but it's caused me to want to go back and learn grappling and transition a lot of it to pro wrestling to a pro style, as they call it. So, and I love it, man. And it's been really cool. It's a totally different journey. You know what I mean? And it's good. The people in pro wrestling are sometimes not my favorite as well. And that's within wrestlers, but also within the crowd. But there's it's kind of like anything, man. You know what I mean? There's some really amazing, cool people that I'm really glad that I've grown to know. And a lot. It's so funny because the pro wrestling crowd is so accepting of MMA, right? But the MMA crowd is not so accepting of pro wrestling. Yeah. But because the pro wrestling crowd is so full of misfits and so diverse as far as what they do, you know what I mean? That they're so accepting of MMA, and a lot of them now transition to doing MMA to make their pro wrestling much better. You know what I mean? Which is it's fun to see. You know what I mean? So. But yeah, it's fun. Pro wrestling's fun. I never thought I'd be like jumping off. Jumping off. Yeah. There's a lot of weird shit I've done in the last 2.5 years that I was like, never thought I'd be doing that at almost the age of 40. But I have a blast every time, and it's really fun, you know. Yeah. So, and I'm happy that I can do both things, you know. And my body's still working enough to do both things right now. So yeah.
No, and that's a real interesting point you bring up about a lot of people because when they see grappling, like because grappling in pro wrestling, that is just grappling, but it's just with the intention. So
they'll call it chain wrestling or catch wrestling. Yeah. So when you and I work like a flow drill, or if you and I work like kind of just flow grappling where we'll catch something, release it. You know, it's not a spar. It's kind of like there's not a real struggle. It's a half struggle, half like just working through things. Yeah. That's catching. I mean, that's catch. That's chain in pro wrestling. Yeah. If you go look at guys in the indie circuit right now, like a guy named Timothy Thatcher, he won't even hit the ropes. You know what I mean? He won't do any of the flipping and something. He won't even ropes. It's just grappling right in the middle. And pro wrestling's getting a little bit more back to that, like, because that's its birth was that
was the root
when they really when pro wrestling first started. It was really guys
when
like
they would really crank.
Yeah, it was legit like wrestlers. Wrestling each other, and then it kind of got into the carny stage of it. You know what I mean? And then it started turning more into works, and then it kind of grew into like heel and face. Heel's a bad guy, face is a good guy, and then it just developed into what it is now. And then it had like obviously a clear big explosion in the '80s when the WWF kind of stopped, because it was all territories, right? And so you'd have a champion, and he'd go work those territories, right? You had the North Wrestling Alliance, and so Vince McMahon turned the WWF into the WWF, and he decided that the world was his territory, and he started making gimmicks where it was more gimmicky, where it was like, you had like Coco Beware, all those things, all like the Junkyard Dog, all like Hulk Hogan, you know what I mean? That really grew a lot. I mean, it started in like the 70s, but it really grew in the 80s and then into the 90s, and then it still grows to this day that way. But, but it was much different. I mean, like if you go back and look at like early pro wrestling, those guys were really legit grapplers.
No, that's the thing, because I remember, and I just looked, because I I remember like just in terms of my own, like I was aware of what pro wrestling was, but I was like, oh, that's different. But then as I, because I wrestled in high school, and then I also, trained grappling, and then just looking. I was just curious, and I'm inquisitive, so I just looked into like the history of pro wrestling, and it's interesting to me, like it is a martial art, like the wrestling, and then because wrestling,
it's a theatric martial art.
Yeah, it's a theatric martial art, and but it stems from, it's like you said, like similar to James's thing, like it was real martial art, but then it became performance, like from there, and I mean really just due to. Just like safety and then
I mean, you want to talk about control with your body. Some of the things that these guys can do is unreal. A lot of the flipping and that kind of stuff is really unreal, and like the ability for them to do that. But the thing that really fascinates me that I had to learn was the ability to throw a strike without the intention of hurting someone, but to make it look like and I'm not gonna lie, I mean, you learn, like when I kick in pro wrestling, they kick them in the chest, you know what I mean? I'm killing the business here because I probably shouldn't but like and I struggle with this to like, because I'm a pretty good kicker, and
True.
And so you know what I mean, I had to get I had to learn so much more control, right? And so at first I would really hold back because I didn't want to injure anybody, and they would be like, no, you need to lay those in more. And then I'll never forget, I really laid one in, like a guy on his knees, and I was just basically throwing low kicks but into his chest. And it was the first time in pro wrestling he's like, no, lay him in. So I hit him probably like 80 or 90%, right? Like, dude, he was bruised for 3 weeks across his whole chest and his arms, you know what I mean? And I realized, okay, so that's probably not the best way to do it. So out of it, I've learned a lot of control, you know what I mean? And I've learned like a lot of things that I can really do well in kickboxing. I can't really translate to pro wrestling until I get better, because I don't want to injure anybody, you know what I mean? Because the goal is not to injure them, you know what I mean? And so that's why I also think it's a martial art, because there's a lot of control. And there's a lot of like knowledge, man. There's a lot of like and a lot of history and knowledge, and like it's a subculture too, like fighting is. There's a lot of like kind of rules and regulations of how to interact with other people in a locker room, and like things that you do, you know what I mean, that you have to learn, and a lot of like verbiage and a lot of like nomenclature that you have to learn, and it's like if you don't know it, you're gonna struggle, but you learn it, and you sometimes learn it the hard way. I'm glad I haven't learned too much the hard way, but I mean, so I mean, it's no different than jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai, you know what I mean? There's names and things for moves, and there's sequences and things like that, and so it's a dance, man, and it's at times can be a very, very dangerous dance. And some of the things that these guys do is mind-blowing. And then I also think there's something that, like, if somebody's not a very good athlete in mixed martial arts, they kind of get weeded out a little bit, right? That doesn't happen a lot of time in pro wrestling. There's a lot of guys that may have a really good gimmick but aren't maybe the best athletes, and that can be a little scary at times, you know what I mean?
Okay, I see.
And then there's guys that can do things that they don't have a lot of control over, but they continue to do them, and you're at their mercy a little bit, unless you decide to choose not to do it, and that's scary in itself as well. You know what I mean? When guys are doing some kind of crazy things that they maybe shouldn't, because they don't have a lot of control over it. And so you have to really find a balance of not breaking your neck all the time. Or not getting your face smashed in because the guy's coming off the ropes, and just, you know what I mean. So, and I've seen it. I've watched guys take a chair shot the wrong way. And in the league that I was in when it was really underground, and it's not so much anymore, I was like, because I had corner experience, I was like the medical guy for a long time. Now we have like legit medical people, right? And I'll never forget, this guy kind of got hit with a chair the wrong way. We call it getting it the hard way, like, because in pro wrestling they gig and they'll bleed, right? They'll take a blade and cut themselves. It's called gigging. But he took a chair shot the wrong way, and it's called getting the hard way. And then he came back, and I put on my gloves, and the gash was like here in his head, and I separated it, and all I saw was skull.
Ooh.
And it looked like somebody took a spoon and just scooped his head out. Like his flesh out of his head.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's nothing I can do for you. You need to go to the emergency room.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting like 10 staples in his head.
Damn.
You know, and I watch guys like on purpose take bamboo shoots and get them smacked into their head, you know what I mean? And like they're bleeding everywhere, and I'm like, I don't do that, right? So that's not a part of pro wrestling that I want to do.
Yeah.
But when you start doing that, like, or guys what they call tack bumps, where they'll literally take out a bag of tacks and they'll be on the ring, and then they'll take a bump, they'll get slammed on it, you know what I mean? And they'll have tacks all over them. And I don't have any desire for that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when you start putting that element in it, and guys don't have a lot of control of themselves, there's a lot of variables that can go bad.
Yeah.
And guys do it, man, and they're crazy. They're insane. And some are really gifted athletes that'll do it, you know what I mean? And some of them are not, but they have a love and passion for it. So, you know, you gotta, and so it gets a little scary at times, but man, it's a lot of fun. So
yeah. And then you were just telling me that you and your tag team partner just won the title.
Yeah. So there's a league in the area that we work in, and you know, winning titles is not like winning an MMA title, right? So it's like clearly not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what it usually is a lot of times you'll hear guys in pro wrestling saying titles don't mean anything, and generally they don't, right? Because it's all predetermined, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing that makes you feel good about it is that whoever's promoting or booking that now has said, hey, you've worked hard enough, and you're over with, and you've worked the crowd where the crowd either hates you or loves you enough, and you've done enough work where like we trust you to make sure you're kind of leading in the company in that part of it, you know what I mean? And so it's basically a handshake to say, hey, good job.
Yeah.
And so that part feels really good, you know what I mean? Because I mean, I've sacrificed a lot for MMA, but also, you know, in the last 2.5 years for pro wrestling, you know, and it was nice, you know what I mean? It doesn't really mean anything, I guess, as far as other than like I'm really good at being a jerk, you know what I mean?
No, but
because I'm a heel, right?
Yeah,
Al and I are a heel tag team, so we're bad guys, and you know, and we've approached it enough where like Al's an old vet. Al's been wrestling in Indie for a long time, right? I haven't, and I've learned a lot from Al, and so we've obviously done enough work. And it makes sense. And the other part too is it has to make sense for the company. You know what I mean? So because it's all a business. It's all a business, right? So, but it's nice to get like the handshake and the like. Good job, man. You put the work in for us to let you do this for a while. You know what I mean? And then we'll pass it on to whoever else that they choose for us to give it to, and because they're the next in line. And I find it weird, and this is the one thing I find about when guys really get an ego about winning and losing and having titles, especially in small independent pro wrestling. Like when you get in the WWE, that's a whole different ball game.
It's a different kind of.
But you know, I mean, for me, like we won it last night, it was fun.
Yeah, just being part
it was.
of it.
It was. It's like like it's what it should be. It was like what MMA is and what pro wrestling is. It's just fun. It was just fun. You know what I mean? And that's all it should be.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then you get to walk around with titles and pretend like you're a badass, you know, and you're like, but it's fun, you know.
So talk about, I think, an interesting part of pro wrestling is, like you said, the crowd work. So talk about
I mean,
you said like being a jerk, and you expand upon that.
So one of the guys I've learned from that I've been in like a what called a heel faction with this guy, Drew Smith, or he goes by Syrian. Yeah. He has four rules. I don't know if they're the best rules, but one of them is get your shit in.
Okay.
Get over with the crowd.
Yeah.
Matching gear if you can.
Yeah.
Safety if there's time. But no, like, so for me, there's a joke also that like 95% of pro wrestling is just gear. It's like we just get to costume ourselves. We just get to costume ourselves, right? So it's not anything about pro wrestling. It's just I get, ooh, what are we going for tights today? You know what I mean? Are we gonna match? You know, like, and it's the but no, like, so I think I'm a pretty nice guy. Generally, I have my crabby moments. But for me, I get booked as a heel, so a bad guy, and so in pro wrestling, getting cheers or getting booed is just as good as getting cheered, right? So my job when I go out there is to make that crowd hate me as much as possible.
Yeah.
right?
Get that strong reaction.
Right, and so there's a line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's certain things you probably shouldn't do, and a lot of times guys cross those lines.
Yeah.
And you also have to fit it within your character. So I'm in a bad guy group. Everybody knows I'm a shoot guy, so I do MMA.
Yeah.
But I'm also kind of billed as an old man, like an old crabby man, right? So,
Yeah.
like old man Sage, you know what I mean? And so, so you know, like, and you have to know your audience, and you have to know who you're working, right? So last night, Al and I wrestled a woman tag team that are sisters, named the Hall Sisters, and they work everywhere, right? And they're from Canada, and so, you know, I don't agree with misogyny, right? Clearly.
Yes. Yeah.
But we're in Seattle, right? So that's a big. What's a big trigger, right?
Yeah, trigger. Yeah,
right. You know,
got some snowflakes.
Yeah. So like, you know, But seriously, what is going to trigger that crowd to boo me? I'm wrestling two women.
Yeah.
Misogyny.
Yeah.
Right. But because I'm an old man, it's like old school misogyny. It's like, you know, it's like. You know, and like there's a spot last night where we're beating up the younger one, Liza, and she's in the corner, and I walk over to her sister Bambi, and I yell, "Who drove you here?" Right? And so like, it's like, who drove you here? Yeah. But it's funny because her mom was in the audience. Her mom was like a real famous like indie pro wrestler from back in. And she gets all upset and comes in the ring. And so what happens is, the ref has to go over and cut her off, right? Because she's not allowed in the ring. Yeah. And so what does that mean? Al starts choking Liza illegally, right? So like that's just old school. Like crowd starts booing us, you know what I mean? And so like, and we had a woman referee, and like she'll start counting, and I'll be like, "Who taught you to count that high?" You know what I mean? Like, And so like, do I really feel that way? No, because like the women referee is a friend of mine, and I love her dearly. Yeah. But I can. There's a line, right? Yeah. That's some really stupid misogyny. Yeah. It's clearly like old school misogyny. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like this true belief that I think women are less than. You know what I mean? Yeah. But what happens every time I do that? Like, that crowd loses their shit about how an awful human being I am, right? Yeah. So I'm doing my job. Yeah. There was one time where her work name is Girl Hebner. Yeah. Right. And if you know WWE, that's funny. Because there's a really famous referee in the WWE called Earl Hebner. Oh, okay. And he's a very famous referee, so we call her Girl Hebner. And we worked out, like, I was wrestling a guy, and my finish is like a spin kick to the face, right? Yeah. So we planned it out, he misses it, and I spin kick her while she's a referee. Yeah. Right in the face. And it was, no, we worked on it, right? Yeah. And she gets knocked out, and I go over there, and I just start pushing her like, is she dead, right? Yeah. And her sister's in the audience, and in the video you can clearly hear her sister yell, "I'm going to fucking kill you, Sage." Like, and I come to find out, to this day, her sister still legitimately hates me because of this. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm doing the right. Yeah, like there's a kid that I wrestle all the time that we're kind of intertwined, and his mom doesn't understand pro wrestling. Does not understand pro wrestling at all. Yeah. And I gave him a spine buster on the floor. Okay. His mom, in the middle of the match, runs. I mean, there's like 500 people here. Yeah. Starts running over to him. Oh, man. And like is yelling at me. Yeah. And to this day, she won't talk to me. Because she legit hates me. Yeah, legit hates you. And so for me, like that, it kind of sucks in a way because I'm like, I'm not a bad guy, and I love Cubby, and I love to meet him, and I love Austin, I love to meet his mom. Yeah. But there's that side of me that's like, oh, awesome. Yeah, because you just drew that kind of that's right. That real reaction. Yeah, yeah. And I feel that's a very interesting aspect of it. It's because it's that psychological thing that people don't really. Yeah, and you have to know, like last Saturday, I worked a different show where there's kids, right? Yeah. So I can't yell I can't fuck you and shit and all that kind of like I can in like the other league that I know, the 2-2-1 battle, right? Yeah. So I worked a different one, and like it's kids. And one kid just yells at me, "You're ugly," and then I responded, "No, you're ugly." Right? And for a good like 5-10 seconds, like we're just I got into a childish argument of, "No, you're ugly. No, you're ugly. No, you're ugly. No, you're ugly. Or no, you're the ugliest." You know what I mean? Yeah. With a 9-year-old. Yeah. Right? So you have to know your audience, right? Yes, exactly, know your audience, and I can definitely relate to that. Just coming from stand-up comedy, is you have to draw that, because people are like, "Oh, why do you say like things?" But it's a lot more calculated, and people realize. Especially stand-up comedy, I would assume, because people think you're just being a dick, but you're calculated to be. Exactly, because you have to use just my words. I truly believe like independent comics and like alternative comics, they clearly don't believe that the things that they say, and the jokes, I wouldn't even say in the basis of what they are funny. What's funny is the people's reaction to them, right?
Yes.
And I think that's lost on people.
Yeah.
Like if when Bill Burr says a joke that borders on racist or homophobic or misogynistic, is he really those things? Like probably not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does he think about those things maybe? Yeah, but he probably thinks that that's so ridiculous that I'm going to say this to make people go, oh my God, how can you say that, right?
Yeah.
And then people who have that understand that idea, that's why we find it funny.
Yeah.
But it's offensive to other people. But that's comedy, right?
Yeah, that's comedy. But that's why it's unique, like you said, like this area.
Right.
Just in terms of.
Oh yeah. I mean, and there's like, and there's certain lines like there's a guy that comes down from Canada that wears his "Make America Great" hat again. And you know, he was wearing Pepe on his gear, and they told him, hey, you can't wear that here, like the Pepe meme, because like the alt-right guys kind of take that over. So like there's certain lines that will draw, like, you know what I mean, like and just on my principles as well, like, you know, like I'm not going to go out and say clear homophobic things because I don't think that's right. I don't believe misogyny is right either. So, you know, I mean, I may be hypocritical, but I feel like saying "Who drove you here" is so ridiculous that it's not even like believable, right?
It's that balance. It's that
right. Yeah, I'm not going to go out and make like, you know, transgender comments or like homophobic comments or like, you know, or, you know, degrade somebody's. I'll degrade appearances, but on, once again, things that are ridiculous, things that like, and that's me. That other heels will definitely go past that line. Like after Carrie Fisher died, a lot of people showed up to one show dressed as like Princess Leia.
Yes. And
so, you know, I screamed at him, and I wish you were dead too. And so I don't know if that may be crossing the line. I thought it was funny at the time. You know what I mean? And maybe that's crossing the line.
I'll probably like
but I got what we call heat. I got a lot of heat for that.
Yeah.
So, but. Do I really wish that they were dead? Do I wish Carrie Fisher was dead? No. Like, clearly I don't.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, you got to understand your audience. You got to know your line. And that's really blurred in pro wrestling. I mean, really blurred. And it's funny because now you guys in MMA are getting it now. You're getting the Conor McGregors blurring those lines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And doing shit he probably shouldn't do to sell fights. But that's been going on in pro wrestling for decades. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And it goes back again to, like you said, how it's funny, like the UFC is.
Do you know why I enjoyed Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather?
Because of how ridiculous it is.
Because I love pro wrestling. That's all that was.
That's how they sold it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was two guys cutting what we call promos on each other.
Yeah.
For 6 months straight.
And they made a lot of money.
And they made a ton of money.
Yeah.
And was it a good boxing match?
Oh.
No, even Mayweather looked like hot garbage, right? Like it's like it wasn't a good boxing match. No. Did I buy it? Do I watch it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I did. You know what I mean? Because I love pro wrestling, and
you appreciate that,
right?
From there, and I think, and that's the thing, and it's. Yeah, and it's funny seeing different people's reaction who don't quite understand that. Right. But it's fun. But I guess it's almost like, well, it's like how you know, I feel like, you know, you and I, in terms of comedic taste, we understand like the underlyings of, like you said, like how when some people say like some comics or just some comedy things, like there's things like underneath, or they may not necessarily believe that, but I feel like some people will just go to that raw emotion, and it's at some point it's kind of enjoyable because it's almost like they can't quite see. It's like when you're a magician and you see other magicians, like, oh, that's really good. The other person doesn't even know they're being tricked right now. Right. Like from there, it's like that sleight of hand.
I also think maybe like with stand-up comedy too, it's maybe something that they do think and they're kind of ashamed of. Yeah. And they may not feel good about it, but they may think it. So it's like it's a good way for them to kind of maybe deal with it.
Yeah, it's like wrestling with that idea. No, I know what you mean, but yeah, it's like what is truth? But it's
and MMA. I'm sorry, I mean, because this is an MMA podcast, we probably bring it back to MMA, but MMA is now in a period of where it's way more pro wrestling than I mean, for anybody who gets upset about this because of the purity of the sport has no idea they don't understand that, like, this is a business.
Yes,
this is an entertainment business
forefront.
Is those people don't understand that there's a purity in pro wrestling as well, right? Like it has different rules, but there's a purity within it as well. And so, you know, once again, they're like Siamese twins, man. You know what I mean? They're conjoined.
It's
and
it's
the
so
proof is in the
connected,
pudding.
You can't separate
look
it.
how successful it is now that people are talking shit to each other, causing not real drama.
Yeah.
You think that these guys really hate each other that much? No, they don't.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's somebody pushing the lines. Yeah. Should Conor McGregor throw that thing through the window? No, clearly not.
Yeah.
Right.
But look at the reaction.
Right.
His generate. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's now like MMA fans. It's come full circle where a lot of MMA fans don't understand that they're loving this because it's just pro wrestling.
Yeah.
It's just a soap opera.
Yeah.
It's a soap opera.
That's what it's a.
It's a violent soap opera.
It's a violent soap opera. Yeah.
Right. And so are the conditions when the two combatants go in? Are the conditions different? Very much so. Is there much more of a realism within MMA? 100%. Right. But everything leading up to that is just to sell that fight for entertainment. The same thing with boxing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
That's the thing.
You don't think Muhammad? Like Muhammad Ali.
Oh yeah.
That guy was one of the cut the best promos ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What happened? What happened to Muhammad Ali though when he went against Aoki? He thought, I'm gonna go over and play around with this pro wrestler in Japan.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Oh god.
He got his ass kicked. He got his ass kicked.
Yeah. Got his legs kicked too.
Yeah. So.
It's funny. But no, but it's interesting in that. Just that, I guess that's psyche.
Not Aoki, Inoki. Sorry, why did I say Aoki? Inoki, yeah.
Inoki, Antonio Inoki.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's it's just interesting what catches people's attention in terms of that. But it's almost that, I guess.
And the rules they put on it.
Yeah.
I love Conor McGregor because he tells the truth and he, you know what I mean? He tells it like it is.
Tells it like it is.
And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, he walks around confident and he stole, he has this confident walk, which he stole from Vince McMahon, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny the boundaries that we put on things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As far as those things are concerned, where a lot of MMA fans will just shit on pro wrestling, but then they'll love Conor McGregor, and you're like, you know,
they don't even really know what they're.
Yeah. And it's fine. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like the art of pro wrestling to still like Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
But you have to understand where it comes from, and you have to understand like what it is.
Yeah, and the emotions that it evokes.
Right.
It's really interesting, like from there. But it's just that intersection.
Dude, at the end of the day, it's all entertainment for $1.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
But MMA is different. And I'm not going to say that there's any more or less passion in either one, but there's clearly a real grit and realism to MMA. You know what I mean? Compared to I say any combat sport, including kickboxing, including Muay Thai, including boxing. There's very real grit clearly in those forms of combat, but MMA, especially older MMA, there's this kind of grit to it of realism that you can't deny, and so and MMA is going across. I think like it's developing and it's doing what every form of combat that's turned into entertainment is doing. It's turning into a sport, right? So it's going to get watered down and it's going to get less pure, and it's going to, people are going to find styles and things that are not entertaining just to win fights based around gaining money and so, but that's the way it's going to go,
it is that progression. But I feel like that grit that you talk about, it's interesting, or I guess it's interesting because back to what we were saying about what attracts people like to it, or like the warrior spirit, or just something inside of people that wants them, or that makes them want to be in a situation where they're pushed like that.
Right. And I don't even think it's about a lot of times the combat side of it. I mean, it is. I don't know how to explain this. It's not about hurting another human being. No. I think for me it's a lot. That side of it's a lot of confidence of knowing that I could probably defend myself pretty well, but at the same time, it's a small part of it. You know what I mean? I think it's this. It's the competition, and not necessarily. And for some people, it's the competition with everybody around them, and for people like me, it's the competition within myself.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm clearly competitive with people around me.
Yes.
But, it's yeah, man. I don't. Maybe I can't even put it into words, but it's something that's just inside of you that you're drawn towards.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think I understand what you're getting at. It's just that it's almost that inner, that there is an outer battle, like you are competing with somebody else. But I feel, for me, there's a big inner battle within myself to want to almost, I guess, like, it's almost as if I feel like the inner conflict within me just expresses itself like in just the way I fight, like from there. In terms of competing, like, I feel like that's a big thing like I deal with when I'm like, you know, like I'm competing in 2 weeks, so I'm wrapping that like in my mind. But it's like it's that fine balance of like how much of the external can I control? I can't really, but I feel like for me it's like it's a very internal thing.
Right. And I think that's where you start to get across the line. You know, Matt said one time that the fighter, anybody can be a fighter. Anybody go down to the bar, punch somebody in the face, be a fighter, right?
Yeah.
I think when you start to understand that concept of the competition within yourself, to better yourself, is when you transition from being a fighter to a martial artist. I think that is one of the biggest points of the difference between a fighter and a martial artist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean a martial artist can't be a fighter, right? But I think that when you start to go across that line of like, this is not to prove to anybody else, to prove to me, that's when you start to really grow, and that's when you start to really develop in martial arts.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that, and I feel that that just comes from examples that I've seen, and then it's just what happened like to work for me, just being in competition, just under, I guess more, because I think that's the thing.
But why do you do the competition?
I do it.
What's the ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal is just, I mean, it's to grow within myself.
Right, it's to better yourself, right?
Yeah, because like people ask, oh, do you want this? I'm like, I don't care about that. I don't really care about, like, the reason I do it is it's all very centric. It's all very for me. I want to do it because I want to compete, and I want to test myself. I mean, it's like that cliche, like, but it's like I feel like I live in, I don't know, it's like you can live life, you can really live it, I guess, protected, or like it's sheltered. And I think, because this is something I examine too, like why do I, you know, put myself in that spot? And I feel like I do want to, I mean, I just want to live, or I guess it is hard to say, like, what is that danger element? But I want to see like how I would do, or I want to see that out, or it's, I guess, adrenaline junkie.
That's probably part of it too. Yeah. I really think, here's what I think. I think, like, for somebody who wants to get better, and this is, you know, I don't want to say I want to have regrets, but I wish I would have, you know, always, hindsight's always 20/20. I think if you want to get better, the way to see your biggest flaws exposed is under the heat of competition, right? Against somebody else. And so competition will expose your flaws, right?
Yes.
And so, you know, once again, you guys talk about Matt a lot on this podcast, clearly, but and I know it's supposed to go for everybody, but Matt's concept, especially of amateur fighting, young amateur fighting, is people get really drawn into the winning or losing, right?
Yes. No, for sure. I was.
Yeah, of course. And so was I, right?
Yeah.
But then when you get, you know, winning or losing starts to matter when it's your paycheck, when it's your well-being, you know, your family's well-being, right?
Yeah.
Winning or losing in an amateur is to expose all the flaws that you have in order to better those flaws, so that when if you get to a level where you now will make money and this may be your job, those flaws are not exposed. And so I think for people, and it's clear as a theory because I'm not you, someone like you go in and you compete because you want to see what your flaws are.
Yes.
Under the heat of competition, because it's so easy to not expose them when it's in a more controlled environment.
Yeah.
And what you do from that is that you watch that, you learn from it, and you grow from that.
Yeah.
So once again, the ultimate goal, I think, as a martial artist is to better yourself.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good, like, when you say that, I feel like the biggest question is like it really is a question, like, for me, like, because I know these things, but how well do I really know them, or how well? I think at the end of the day, I'm asking myself, how good am I really?
Right.
When I go out there, because that's something I need to answer with, and it's a frightening question.
Right.
Looking back, or I mean, just looking ahead. But I feel I've come to the point now where I would rather go out and seek it than to run away from it and always wonder.
Right.
Like because I feel like that would be the more, like me never knowing would be more damaging to me than to find out.
I think that's why I decided to do a little bit of competition while I was in my mid-30s. I knew I didn't like competition, but I needed to at least get a couple things under my belt to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the last time I competed was just like a kickboxing smoker, but it felt like a real fight, and it was the only time I ever fought for myself. It was the only time I did it because I wanted to, not because I felt like I had to. Mm-hmm. Which is a really stupid reason to fight. You should never fight because you feel like you have to.
Yes.
And I'm really glad I did it. You know what I mean? And it keeps you very humble and it keeps you very realistic about things. And so it's real easy to know that you're a badass in the gym when you're sparring with your buddies, but like when there's someone who's really trying to injure you, and you're really trying to injure them, you know what I mean? It's because that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
It does expose a lot of the flaws. You know what I mean? So, I think competition is very healthy, and I think as long as you do it in a manner where it's on your terms. You know what I mean? It should never always be on your terms.
Yeah.
It's good, and it'll help you grow as a martial artist. That's for sure. So.
Yeah, for sure. Just that. It's just that true. Like it's like you said, it's that true test where you can't hide. Mm-hmm. And I think really that's just what, at the core, because I guess I wasn't quite as sure. Like looking in, and honestly, I'm still wrestling with that now. But I just know that I do want to seek it out, and that's just where I'm at personally. So
you're in a good place to do it too. You know what I mean? You're a good age to do it. You're a good place to do it, and you have a good mental side to do it. And Ender, you're moving the camera around now.
Okay.
Oh, he's giving us.
Yes.
Oh, we're wrapping it up.
We got to wrap things up.
I'm saying I'm long-winded, Ender. I'm long-winded now.
We have 3 minutes left.
We got to steamroll this.
Yes.
But anyway, all right. So the camera guy says the
So
camera.
first, get your shit in.
Get your shit in.
Get over with the crowd. Matching gear if you can.
Yeah.
Safety if you have time.
Safety if you have time. Take that and learn, kids.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. No, thank you, Greg.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
This is great. All right.